Hey, what is up guys? Welcome to another video. In this tutorial I will show you how to create this awesome looking love calculator application using HTML, CSS and a little bit of JavaScript. So to show you how this works, I will input my channel name, which is Kader Media, and for the partner I will say followers, and I will hit the button and my followers love me 71%. That's pretty much, that's good. And you see that it disappears after 4 seconds. Now if I don't enter anything in the fields and I click the button, we get this alert message which says please add names. If I do that only on one place, we again get the alert message. So we have to do it on both places before hitting the button to see the result. So now let's jump into Visual Studio Code and start coding this application from scratch. Okay, so back in Visual Studio Code, I have a blank project opened. Inside I have one image which I will include in the description below the video so that you can download it. And now I will create my index.html file. I will create my style.css file. I will create the app.js file, and inside the index I will generate my boilerplate by hitting Shift exclamation mark and tab, and that will auto generate my boilerplate. For the title I'll say love calculator. Let's link our CSS, so I will link it. And also for this project I'll be using the Google Fonts. So I will navigate into Google Fonts and I will choose the robot font family by choosing this regular style, and I will click on select style and I will copy this code here and go back and paste it inside my head tag. Okay, so now we are ready to start writing our structure inside the body. So inside the body, we will have one div with the class of container, which will be a parent that will hold other divs and elements. So inside this div, I'll create one div which will store the title. So I'll call it div class title. And inside this div, let's create an h2 and let's say enter your names and see how much you love each other. Below this div, let's create another div which will store our inputs and the animated heart. So I'll create a div with the class of input-fields. And here we will have one div with the class of input-1, and below that div we will have our input heart div, and next to it input2 div. So inside the input1 div, let's create one input with the type of text. Name will be input 1, ID input 1, and for placeholder let's say enter your name ... Now inside the heart div we have to import the heart from Fontawesome, so I will hit Fontawesome and I will search for a heart icon. So I'll say heart in the search, and let's choose one heart, so I will choose this one. And I'll copy the styles and paste it inside this div. Inside input to div. Let's copy this and basically paste it. However, we will change the name to input2 and the ID to input2, and here for the placeholder I'll say enter your partner name. Okay, so below this div, actually below this one, let me close this, actually below. So now I will be using my Prettier, which is a nice extension. If you haven't installed Prettier, make sure you hit the extensions and write down Prettier, which is a very nice extension that formats your code whenever it's like messy and ugly. So what you need to do is just hit Alt, Shift and F and it will make it pretty. So below this div class input2, let's create another div with the class of button, which will hold our button. And inside this div, let's create one button. I'll give it a class of btn calculate and ID of btn calculate, and I'll say calculate result. And below this div, we have to create the div which will hold our output. So I will say div class result, and for the moment we will leave it empty, but we will populate that dynamically with JavaScript later on. So we are pretty much ready with our core structure, and what I will do is I will open that with Live Server. Live Server is another extension that you can install and use. It's free. So I'll quickly open my Live Server, and what we see is this ugly stuff which we will start styling in a moment. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and I think we forgot something. We don't see our heart, so to import it I will use this cdn.gs.com, where you can copy the link tag and you can paste it inside your head tag. And now if you save the index file and go back to the application, you will see the heart, but it's very tiny, so let's make it bigger by saying fa4x. If I save now, go back, it's much bigger. So we are done with this, and let's start styling this. So I'll close this one and I will hit to my style.css, and inside the style.css let's do a reset. So basically let's say box size in border box, margin 0 and padding 0. Next, let's start styling the body. So for the body, let's make sure we include our font family, which I will grab from Google Fonts. If you keep this, you will see this thing here, which you need to copy and then paste inside the body. If you save now and check it, you see that the font changes. So what else I will do for the body? I will make sure its width it's 100%. For the height, because our application will be positioned in the center of the page, we have to make sure that we give the body a full height of 100 viewport height. Okay, and the display will be flex. We will align items in the center. We will justify the content in the center, and we will do flex direction column. If we save now, we will see that the content moved to the center of the page, which is what we want. And we will import the image. So for the background, I'll say image URL quote, and here I'll say dot slash, which is the current directory, and I will include this image, which will be in the description below the video again. So background size will be cover, background repeat, no repeat, and for background position will be center, center. If we now save and go back, we see the image popped up, but we don't see our content. So let's start styling this parent div which we created with the class of container. So here I'll say container, and let's give this container a width of 600 pixels and see how this will look like. The height will be 400 pixels. Background color will be white. So I'll say F. And let's save and go back. So now we see the container. Perfect. Let's give this container a border radius of 15 pixels and see the corners. Yeah. And what else we need to do? Let's give the container a nice box shadow, which I will grab from Google. So I'll say CSS box shadow generator, and I will choose this one, cssgenerator.org. And here we can define our box shadow. I like this one. You can play around with it. This one is not bad, but however, as we have a black background, we need to make it white. So I'll make it white. And we need to copy this and head back and paste it here. Hit prettier to make it pretty, and yeah, so let's save and go back to our application. And now we see the box shadow, which makes it look nicer. What else we need to do in the container? We need to say text align center. Now they moved to the center. Okay, however, we don't want these inputs to be like that. We want them to be next to each other along with the heart in the center. So we can do, we gave this div the class of input fields. So that parent div, we need to make it flex. So we can do dot input fields, and here we can do display flex, justify content center, or actually it will be spaced evenly. You can say flex direction row. Let's save and see how this looks like. Okay, they are next to each other, but we see the button next to them, which is not how we want it. We want the button to be below that, and to fix this we can do display flex direction column. So if I do this, the items, okay, so we have a problem here, and I know exactly why this is happening. This is because the button div needs to be outside this input fields div. So it needs to be here, and the result div also needs to be here. So if I save now and go back, we see that the button moved below. Perfect. What else we can do inside this input fields? We can do align items center because we want them to be in the center. Let's also start styling the individual inputs and the heart as well. So for that one, I would say, remember we did input fields input input and then comma input fields input to input, and we can give the inputs a padding of 5 pixels and save and go back and see how this looks like. It looks better. Let's make sure the outline is none, no border, 0, background, let's make it gray and see how it looks like. Actually, I don't like this gray. Let's make it DE, which is kind of light gray, I guess. Yep. And let's increase the padding. Let's make it bigger, so make it 10 pixels. Okay. What else we need to do is we need to style the heart, so we need to do input dash fields input heart dot fast. That's the class name of the icon. So we can do color red. And let's save. Now the heart is red. Let's move this whole div which holds the inputs and the heart a little bit down, and let's make sure the title also it's a little bit down. So what we have to do is we can say margin, let's try 50 pixels top and bottom and 0 for the left and right. Now they moved below, and let's make sure the title is also below. So input fields, and what type of name we gave to the title? Actually it's in the container, so we can say just dot title margin 20 pixels 0. Let's save and go back, and now the title moved a little bit as well. However, I think we need to increase the size of this whole container because the title is not fitting on one line. So let's try 700 pixels, and now it's wider and it fits on one line. Also, this heart is too tiny. Let's make it bigger. So inside the index file where we set fast for heart, let's make it actually 6x and save. Now the heart is bigger. Perfect. What's next? We have to style this button, which is with the class of button to the div and class of btn-calculate for the button. So what we can do is we can say class btn calculate. Also for those inputs, let's make sure the font size is 18 pixels. And for the button, let's say padding of 10 pixels. Color to be white. Background to be red. Font size to be 16 pixels or 18. Let's hit save. Let's make this pretty. Go back. Okay, let's remove the outline. So I'll say outline none. border 0. Let's save, go back, and now we have the button. Also, let's make sure the cursor is pointer. We save now, and if we hover over the button, we see the cursor like a pointer. Now, that's perfect. Let's now work on this heart, and let's make the heart actually, moving like a real heart, compressing, pumping blood. So what we have to do is, for this heart, which we have that class of fast, we can say animation, and we can call it heart 4 seconds infinite, which will make it repeat the cycle in an infinite loop. So here I can say keyframes, and I have to give this the same name as the animation name I gave, heart. And here we can do 0%, then we have 25%, and we can do 50% and 100%. And whenever it's 0%, I want to transform, scale it by 1. And on 25%, I want to transform, scale it, let's try 1.2. And for 50, let's make it 1 again. And for 100%, let's make it 1.2 again. And let's save this, and let's go back, and now you see the heart is moving dynamically, but I don't like this 1.2, so let's make it 1.1 and see how it looks like. Looks okay. However, let's give that an ease. I see it's moving slightly, which looks great. Now, our styling is pretty much done, and we have to work on the JavaScript. So what I will do is I will go back to the index file, and first of all, I will link my app.js file. So I'll say script, and for the source, I'll say app.js. Now let's make sure our app is linked. So let's do a simple alert of working. If I go back to the file, we see that our JavaScript is linked properly. Okay. Now, what we need to do, basically, we need to get those inputs that the user will input in the input fields, and we have a dynamic button that will generate our content. So first of all, what I will do is I will say const input1 value, and that will be equal to document.getElement by ID. And remember, we gave those inputs an ID. So this one is input 1 and second one is input 2. So I'll say input 1. I will copy this basically and just change the name to input 2 value, which will be input 2. We also have to import our button, so I'll say const btn calculate equals document.getElement by ID, and let's make this btn dash calculate, and let's make sure it's the same class. Yes, btn, that's calculate, that's correct. And then we also need to get our div class of result, which will store our result and output the result dynamically with JavaScript. So what I will do is I'll say const result div equals document dot get element by ID, and that will be result dash div. Let's give that an ID of result dash div. Okay, let's save our app file and go back. Everything is okay. And now let's make sure our button is working. So let's assign an event listener to the button. So we can say btn calculate that add event listener, and we will listen for the click event. So say click, and here I will pass an anonymous function, which I will use an arrow function, and I'll say alert working. So let's save this, click on the button, and we see our button is working. Great. So now what we need to do is, after we have linked our button and it's working properly, we have to validate those fields. So whenever the user should not see our results. So let's head back to our app.js file. And what we can do now is we can check. So we can say if input one value dot value equals empty string, or input two value dot value equals empty string, we can say alert, please input names. And inside the else, we'll put our whole logic. So for the moment, let's save this and go back and click the button, and you see that we get this alert message. If we type it on one place, we get it again, which is showing that it's working properly. So inside the else, we need to do our logic. So first of all, I will create one constant, or I'll say let percentage. Now we'll leave it like this. And inside the else statement, what I will do is I will say percentage equals math.floor math.random and I will multiply this by 100 plus 1 and hit save now. And I want to see that percentage, so basically I will alert it to see that. So I'll hit save, go back, let's put some names, and we get 25. Okay, so now let's get this div which we created, the result div, and assign the value dynamically inside it. So what we need to do is result div dot inner HTML equals, I'll use backticks, which is the button below the escape button on your keyboard, and here we can put h2 tag, and we can say percentage, and we can put percentage here. Let's save this and let's test this out. So we put names, some random stuff, we click the calculate button, so we get 32. However, I don't like this. It's too close to the button. So let's give this a little bit of margin. So let's head back to the CSS, and for the result div, we can say, let's see, what was the class? So div class result. You can say div class result, margin 20 pixels, 0. Let's see how this looks like. Yeah, it's much better. And also we can change this to H1 to be bigger, and let's save. It's gone, but let's input again some stuff. 28%. Nice. Now what we need to do is we have to remove this after 4 seconds, let's say, and we need to clear the input fields. So what we can do is we can use set timeout. So set timeout, which takes an anonymous function again, that will be an arrow function, and here we can do our seconds, 4000 milliseconds, which is 4 seconds, and we just need to say result div inner HTML equals empty string. Okay, now if I save this and go back and input something and click the button, we get 61, but after 4 seconds it disappears. And we also have to clear the input fields, so let's go back to this else block, and here we can actually, that can be done here. So we can do input one value dot value equals empty string, and input two dot value equals empty string. Now if I save and go back, we can test this. Please input names. Let's put something in the one. So we get the alert message again. Let's say Kadir Media, followers, calculate, and my followers love me 54%, which is okay for the moment, but I hope they will love me 100% in the future. And yeah, so pretty much our application is done, guys. You saw how to use math.floor. You saw how to use set timeout. Very useful stuff that will help you enhance your JavaScript skills. So if you did enjoy this video, please make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and also make sure you comment below the video with a comment saying I subscribed, and I will make sure to respond to your comment as soon as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.